The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
Rob Reiner was a brilliant actor and director. His wife, Michelle Singer Reiner, was an equally iconic photographer and producer. These charges carry a maximum sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole or the death penalty.
Good morning, Your Honor. Alan Jackson, along with Caitlin Mason, Elizabeth Little, and Mortimer Jackson, complain on behalf of Mr. Reiner, who's currently present in court in custody. We are set for January 7th for an arraignment. That's the next court date.
Two power players facing off in a murder case against Nick Reiner. Los Angeles District Attorney Nathan Hochman versus Alan Jackson, plus the former sheriff, who's accused of shooting a judge in his chambers, expected in court today. Will he get bond or stay behind bars? One of many looming questions this morning. Also this hour, the Brown University shooting suspect still on the run. We're going to take a closer look at potential clues to identify him. And next hour, convicted killer Brian Walsh back in court for his sentencing. We're live on the ground in Dedham, Massachusetts. It's all next right here on Opening Statements. Good Thursday morning and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Ted Rollins in this morning for Julie Grant. It's going to be a busy day here at Court TV. This Brian Walsh, he didn't take the stand, remember, during his trial. Today's his last chance. Is he going to say anything at the sentencing? Is he going to apologize? Who's going to be there for Anna Walsh? You know, she's not from here, but she has so many friends and family. All that emotion kicking off next hour in Dedham, and we will be there for it all. Plus, body language expert we're going to have in this morning to break down that Brown University suspect video. See what kind of trends, will they be able to identify this individual on all of that and come to a resolution in this manhunt. First, though, as we always do, we take a look at the daily docket.
Mr. Foreperson, in the matter of the Commonwealth versus Brian Walsh, Norfolk Superior Court Criminal Indictment Number 2023-0091. As to count one, wherein the defendant Brian Walsh is charged with murder in the first degree, what say the jury? Is the defendant guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Guilty of what, sir?
Murder in the first degree.
Murder in the first degree. So say you, Mr. Foreperson.
I do.
That was the last time we saw Brian Walsh in court. He'll be back today at 9 o'clock Eastern Time, facing a mandatory life sentence without parole. So not a lot of drama on the sentence. Who will be there for Anna? Will he speak? We'll find out live at 9. In Ohio, all the evidence is in the drowned wife murder trial for Paul Hicks. Nearly 25 years later, Hicks is accused of killing his ex-wife, Regina. The jury will be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. for closing arguments. And in Nevada, we're bringing you a hearing for a teen accused of intentionally driving into a line of stopped cars, killing 3 people. The defendant here, Jose Gutierrez, may face the death penalty. We'll roll that out later today, but we're going to begin in California, where defendant Nick Reiner will spend the holidays behind bars. His arraignment was pushed back until next month. Reiner, of course, accused of brutally murdering his parents, famed Hollywood director Rob Reiner, and his wife, photographer, producer Michelle. He made his first court appearance very briefly yesterday. Couldn't see him on the camera. He was back behind glass, but we did see his attorney, a well-known person for Court TV, Mr. Alan Jackson. Take a look.
I just have a couple of quick words. First of all, and most importantly, this is a devastating tragedy that has befallen the Reiner family. We all recognize that. Our hearts go out to the entire Reiner family. There are very, very complex and serious issues that are associated with this case. These need to be thoroughly but very carefully dealt with and examined and looked at and analyzed. We ask that during this process you allow the system to move forward in the way that it was designed to move forward. Not with a rush to judgment, not with jumping to conclusions, but with restraint and with dignity and with the respect that this system and this process deserves and that the family deserves. So with that, we are set for January 7th for an arraignment. That's the next court date. And that's all I have to say at this point. There may be more at some other point, but today we're going to rest on where we stand procedurally, which is this was the continuance of an arraignment. Nothing happened today substantively. We'll be back for an arraignment in the same department on the 7th of January. We'll see you then.
All right, that's Alan Jackson. On the other side of the coin is District Attorney Nathan Hochman announcing the formal charges against the 32-year-old earlier this week.
These charges will be 2 counts of first-degree murder with the special circumstance of multiple murders. He also faces a special allegation that he personally used a dangerous and deadly weapon, that being a knife. These charges carry a maximum sentence of life in prison without the possibility of parole or the death penalty. No decision.
All right, some pretty strong players. I mean, this is as big as you get. You have the DA in L.A. County and a guy that ran for DA and lost, but used to be a prosecutor in L.A. County and now, of course, a high-profile attorney in Southern California. Let's break it down here to discuss criminal defense attorney and civil attorney John Phillips and criminal defense attorney Michael J. Brown. 2 big-time attorneys we have with us talking about those 2 heavy hitters out in L.A. Let's start with you, John. What's your take on this matchup? Because, frankly, both of these guys have egos, they have skills, and while there seems to be a ton of evidence for the DA, it's an X factor bringing in a guy like Alan Jackson.
Inconceivable. I'm going to start with a Princess Bride quote, one of Rob Reiner's, more famous movies. This is the matchup. I've been to that court and done a press conference outside with Bob Shapiro, and the hallways there are really interesting. You get some of the best from LA, Beverly Hills, all of the Brentwood, things that have gone down in civil and criminal courts. And this one's going to be fascinating from an attorney perspective, and I'm sure we're going to get into it, but also because you have, family on family. And so everything can't just be raging because both sides share blood. And so it's why Alan Jackson started with sensitive tones, let's just hold on here. But it's going to be fascinating.
Michael, your thoughts? A lot of eyeballs are going to be on this, and they already are.
Yeah, Ted, good morning. Good morning, John. It is a horrible situation, obviously, because you have, as John indicated, a family who's lost 2 parents and potentially a brother. But Alan Jackson is just such a good attorney, and we followed that case in Massachusetts. We followed the Karen Reed case. He is such a skilled attorney and really does the best for his client, is very crafty. And I expect there'll be some type of psychological defense, although it's very early on. But I think that this defendant did himself a service in the sense of hiring Alan Jackson, because I don't think he can get better, quite frankly.
Yesterday, we saw on Court TV here as Alan Jackson pushed the arraignment back to January 7th. That strategy, a lot of people have different ideas of why that had happened. Here first is another big player, Mark Garagos, weighing in on why he thinks Jackson pushed the arraignment.
I'm going to bet you, I don't have any inside information, that AJ has already hired at least 2 psychiatrists. I would believe not just that not guilty by reason of insanity plea is in the works, but they put over the arraignment because I believe what is happening is that it's entirely possible that Alan is going to declare a doubt as to the competency of Nick Reiner.
That Mark Garagos on the CNN, obviously. Do you agree with that assessment, Mr. Phillips?
How are you going to disagree with Mark Garagos? And by the way, Mark, you still owe me a lunch. They have to, and it kind of fits when you have like parent side, right? When you have somebody that's brutally murdered their parents, a jury, the court of public opinion wants to lean forward and say, well, what went wrong here? And what level of abuse was he under? What was his mental health and emotional health? Because this isn't normal. These are the last people, in order of everybody else in the world that you should want or kill, want dead or kill. And so, yeah, I agree with Mark.
If indeed he's evaluated early on, even before this arraignment, and is deemed incompetent to stand trial, it doesn't mean he was incompetent at the time of the incident. Michael, how important are sort of the hours preceding? We heard about him going to the Conan O'Brien Christmas party, acting weird, going up to people and seeing out of place. How important is that to establish that, okay, all of this time period is enveloped in what the defense may or may not argue that he was incompetent?
Yeah, well, again, Ted, you hit the nail on the head, which is two separate things. Incompetent to stand trial simply means we're going to have to keep delaying and pushing back the trial until he can adequately prepare and assist in his defense. All that does is delay the case, as opposed to an insanity defense, which is, I think, what you're harping on. And that's the real important thing. And everything before, during, and after the actual incident is going to be critical, because that's going to help the defense establish that if they're going with an insanity defense, that he was unable to formulate, he can't understand, he can't appreciate the wrongfulness of his actions. So all the things, again, immediately before, during, and after the actual episode are going to be critical.
17 trips to rehab, living on the streets. There seems to be a very well documented mental illness, substance abuse sort of mix. It's more substance abuse in the public eye at this point. In fact, of course, Rob Reiner talked about it when they were promoting the movie that they collaborated about, which was Nick's life. Take a listen to Rob Reiner talking about his son and that experience.
The fact that we were dealing with, things that Nick had gone through and how I had related to it and how his mother had related to it, it forced me to have to see more clearly and understand more deeply what Nick had gone through. And I think it forced him to see things that I had experienced during this process. And it definitely brought us closer together. I mean, it was like over a period of a year. It was intense. It was difficult at times, but it was also the most satisfying creative experience I've ever had.
John, if there's a significant percentage of people that are incarcerated that have fought mental illness and or drug addiction, what makes Nick Reiner any different than people filling up our prisons?
Well, everybody knows that the scales of justice tend to tip a little better towards those with wealth and fame. And by choosing Alan Jackson, by having, an arraignment that was already thought out, not just go plea and then we'll figure it out all later, they're already setting the stage. And the bad side of this is it's all going to be played out in the court of public opinion, and we're still dealing with massive tragedy. But you look at this is more recent, and as a father, it breaks my heart. And as a country and how this has already been politicized, we've just got to do better. We've got to realize that, like you said, so many people have addiction and mental health. We've got to just calm down and treat people with more kindness, particularly around Christmas, for crying out loud.
You don't hire Alan Jackson without funds, and one could argue that Nick Reiner's funds would have been limited going into this, Michael. So he must have family support, which you would imagine that this is a triple tragedy for the Reiner family. They've lost two, potentially three. How does that play in terms of Nathan Hochman? Does he care if the family is supporting the defendant? I mean, we saw it play out a little bit, already in Hochman's early career as the district attorney of Los Angeles. Does it matter if the Reiner family says, listen, we're supporting the defendant, or is he representing the state of California?
It's a great question, Ted. And I think in the past, when I'm dealing with cases where it's a family member, they definitely always, meaning the prosecution, always considers the feelings of the family members. You know, if there was a potential, I'm not suggesting that happened here, but a potential abuse situation, or there was traumatic incidences that happened in the home, they're always cognizant and concerned with the feelings of the remaining and surviving family members. I don't know here if the brother and sister are supportive of the defendant or not. And it's really early on, and they have to process what just transpired. But I think that would play a large role in potentially what happens. But nevertheless, I do see Alan Jackson pursuing some type of the diminished actuality defense or an insanity defense. So I don't know if it's going to matter really at the end of the day what the family thinks, because I think they're going to go full speed ahead with that type of defense.
Yeah. Let's get a break. Coming up on opening statements, will a former sheriff in Kentucky get bond, stay behind bars? This is a fascinating case. We all watched this Mickey Stines play out. There's video of him murdering a judge. And our next 12 days of holiday crimes. This morning, we're taking you back to New Year's Day this year, where a driver killed 14 people on a crowded street in New Orleans.
The Court TV podcast will return.
Can we loosen this up a little or give the window down? I'm sorry? Can we loosen this up a little? Be fair to me, man. I got some air. I'll crack the window for you, but I can turn the air on back here. Okay? Yeah. Be fair to me now. I promise, man. Yeah, I promise. God, please. I promise. It's hot back here, man. I can't breathe.
Well, what took the air out of a small Kentucky community is once again trending as the defendant and former sheriff who killed the judge is back in court today. Both parties expected to be in court to argue motions that could impact the trial for this man here, Mickey Stines. The defense has said the defendant does not deny his part in the shooting, well, because we've all seen it on video. Judge Kevin Mullins was executed in his chambers. The defense says they believe the defendant lacked the capacity to understand his actions on the day he walked into the judge's chambers and killed him at point-blank range. Here's a look at the pending motions here. Judges is set to address these today. It's going to be a big day there. The Commonwealth has a motion for a change of venue. That's not the defendant. The Commonwealth wants this moved to a different county. They also want an independent exam of the defendant, and the defense has a motion for bond, and the defense also, of course, wants to dismiss the whole thing. Let's focus on that motion for bond by the defense. We'll ask, is this going to work? He's there killing somebody, right? And it's obvious this is murder. Is this a guy you want to let out on bond? But he is a former sheriff. Let's bring back in John Phillips and Michael J. Brown. Michael, to you first. Is this a long shot, the bond hearing today, given the evidence that we've all seen with our eyes?
Yeah, I think long shot is putting it mildly, Ted. You're dealing with a murder first degree. You're dealing with a potential, I think, death penalty case, and the evidence is overwhelming. I mean, as you indicated, that video has been shown around the country many times. So, listen, there's bail factors. Kentucky follows what we do here in New York, which is the least restrictive means necessary. He has no prior criminal history. His ties to the community are extremely strong. His family, he was the sheriff. You could take all that and throw it in the garbage. At the end of the day, you're looking at potentially a death penalty case. The risk of flight is tremendous. There's no better risk of flight than this type of case. So I couldn't see any judge setting bail.
And the argument from the defense is that he's insane. You know, he's insane. So, all right, we're not going to let an insane murderer out, are we, on bond pending trial? John?
You said it. You guys got the answer that I would have is that, one, he does it on video. So, you know he killed someone in what looks like cold blood. Two, his defense is his own mental health. And so if I'm a judge, I say no bond. Sorry, I've weighed all the circumstances, but we've got to protect not only, the justice system, but the public.
Yeah. Now, the other issue here. This is bizarre. A change of venue from the Commonwealth. And the backstory here is this is a case full of rumors, sort of behind the scenes behavior by people in the roles of leadership within this county, including the judge. There's a civil suit here. The defendant's daughter, Lila, took to social media months ago to address the rumors connecting her name to her dad's case. Take a listen.
A lot of you were asking what stories, what do you mean by gossip? And what I mean by that is the stories that were made up about me and the other party, and that is where the gossip comes in at. I wasn't actually talking about the situation and what actually happened itself. I was more leaning towards the rumors that had been spread about me. I am aware of how serious this is and how much of a big deal it is. I was not talking about news or social media. I was simply talking about the people who sit at home behind a keyboard all day and say terrible things about my name.
And some of those people say terrible things about the victim in this case and the people around and there's been civil litigation, there's been sheriff deputies. It's we don't know all of the truth, so we're not going to blurt it out on national television. However, it is telling, John, isn't it? Is it not that the Commonwealth wants a change of venue? Usually it's flipped.
Yeah, usually the Commonwealth is like anytime, anywhere, give me my jurors, give me my system that I know very well, I'm good. Here, there's just so much overlap. It's small town nepotism, politics, relationships, we'll just say that. I didn't mean to do the 6-7 move while I did that. My kids will appreciate that, I guess. But it's complicated, and so yeah, let's try to get it to a jurisdiction that is probably going to be another Kentucky small town, but it won't have the exact ties to the witnesses, the justice system. I mean, I've moved to change venue when I sued a sheriff's department, and that sheriff's department was going to be a bailiff. This is like all connected. So it's a wild one.
Yeah, and Michael, you could have in a small jury pool scenario, it comes down to, well, I like Mickey Stines better than I did. He was a good sheriff, and you have that almost the dead of Massachusetts thing in Karen Reed, where you have a community that was basically saying, I don't believe the people in charge. It's playing out in a smaller town with a smaller jury pool. Your thoughts on the Commonwealth wanting it out?
Yeah, very unusual, as you said, Ted, because normally you see the defense making that application, a motion to change the venue. But let's remember, both sides of the coin, the people and the defendant, are entitled to a fair and impartial jury. So if the prosecution thinks, hey, because of this small town, everybody knows everything about everybody, and potentially maybe the judge had a lot of negative thoughts out there, and it would certainly prejudice the jury pool in this particular case. Well, you know what? They have an absolute right to say, hey, Judge, we want to move it to a county where they're not familiar with the players, and we can have a clean slate, and everybody can get a fair and impartial jury. So if they can back it up, certainly I think it's something that should be seriously considered by the court.
The defense, John, this temporary insanity scenario, how does that work? Could it be a situation where the sheriff of a small town finds out something so dramatic that it sends him into a temporary insanity state? Is that where this might be going?
Michael Brown could give you probably more specific examples, but Ted, that's exactly the play I think that they're playing out. That otherwise you've got this elected sheriff that would be, normal, completely fine, but clearly something triggered a mental break that took away his ability to form intent and be, in the moment to do this killing.
And that source likely you would argue came from the judge, who was the victim, which could make jurors connect the dots. We'll have to leave it there. Gentlemen, thank you. Enjoy your Thursdays. Still to come on opening statements.
Because of the intentional mindset of this perpetrator who went around our barricades in order to conduct this, he was hell-bent on creating the carnage and the damage that he did.
Nearly a year ago, terror struck Bourbon Street. A man drove a truck into a crowd, killing 14. The aftermath, the city of New Orleans still faces. We'll talk about that a year later. And breaking down the body language of the Brown University shooting suspect, who is still on the run. We have our expert going to join us live this morning. Stay with us.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
Early New Year's Eve day, 2025, a truck barrels down New Orleans' famous Bourbon Street district, killing 14 people and injuring 30, who were simply out celebrating the new year.
The city of New Orleans was impacted by a terrorist attack.
The subject has been identified as 42-year-old Samsoud Dim Jabbar, a U.S.-born citizen from Texas.
The guy ends up getting out and shooting people. Like, he had ARs and bombs.
This is not just an act of terrorism. This is evil.
Security cameras on Bourbon Street captured the pickup truck speeding through the narrow streets before it crashed. The driver then opened fire on responding police officers, wounding 2. The suspect died in that gunfight. The bloody scene came as a shock to one of the most popular party streets in the country. And still today, New Orleans authorities are trying to figure out how to make the French Quarter completely safe. Here to discuss, Editor-in-Chief, Louisiana Illuminator, Greg LaRose, covered the attack. Let's start, Greg, and thanks for your time. Take us back to that day and the shock and horror. We all watched it play out on television from around the world, but you were there covering it. Take us back, if you would.
Sure. Yeah. Just watching that footage is pretty jarring. This all took place around 3:15 in the morning local time. And look, I did not have a very exciting New Year's Eve, but I can remember being jarred awake by a number of push notifications on my phone with the breaking news coverage and seeing all of this unfold. And I think what, kind of sunk in over the ensuing 12 to 24 hours was, okay, here in New Orleans, we're familiar with mass casualties, mass disaster, whether that be man-made or natural in terms of, say, Hurricane Katrina, the Deepwater Horizon incident in the Gulf in 2010. Mass shootings, we're not immune to these types of events, but this just sat different. I think this really brought home the fact that, anywhere you are vulnerable to a terrorist attack like this.
And at the time, the Super Bowl was looming, so there were some security changes, specifically the pylons that come up and prevent cars from going down certain streets. Those were being replaced, upgraded. There were temporary ones that weren't used, apparently. Looking back, has the city come up with the solutions to prevent something like this? And I get it. The odds of some guy in Texas driving to New Orleans and barreling down the street are low. However, I would think that after something like this does happen, you want to make sure it can't happen again. Where are we in terms of that?
Yeah, the short answer, work in progress, which is, I think kind of concerning given that, again, we would anticipate fairly sizable crowds for New Year's Eve, and then carnival season is early with Mardi Gras right around the corner. And city leaders are saying that it's probably 6 months before they install really what would end up being a permanent system. And the debate that's taking place is whether we shut off access to the quarter or provide sort of a swinging gate option that allows the ability for delivery trucks, for taxis, ride shares to access the hotels and whatnot. But yeah, that's still a work in progress. And I think, it's sort of discouraging if you ask people around town that action hadn't been taken quicker, given that this incident occurred as a result of oversights involving the prior system that was not in place.
And that was because of the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl went off with no security issues. Is now, as we get close to New Year's Eve again, is there any sense that people maybe aren't going to go out and enjoy the way they would have last year or years prior?
That's a great question. The one thing, I'm from South Louisiana. I've lived and worked in New Orleans proper, in city limits, for more than 20 years now. And, I don't mean to be, dismissive with this, but very little gets in the way of people having a good time here. In a sense, I think maybe in a sense of defiance, people will come out and show that, hey, we're not going to let this super unfortunate incident deter what we really celebrate as our culture here, knowing how to have a good time. But I would think it's also, we're now just 2 weeks away. I think, some of that is going to kind of be right below the surface for people, knowing that, you can put on a brave face, but, are you truly safe? I think people are going to have that in the back of their minds.
And, the one-year anniversary is going to trigger the memories, those feelings, all of that reaction coming back. Here's a little bit of reaction from the time somebody on the streets saying, oof, this was crazy.
My truck hits the corner and comes barreling through people, throwing people like a movie scene, like real life, throwing people into the air, they falling under the car, all of that. Bodies all up and down the street, everybody screaming and hollering. You look down, you see somebody doing CPR, you look around, people crying on the floor, like brains, matter all over the ground. And yeah, it really hurt me to see one of my closest friends like that.
Greg, that the descriptions are unbelievable because it is so different. Using a vehicle as a weapon, it is just, it's hard to fathom that aftermath. And I don't know that you could build a fortress, but at what point, where's the line where you're now taking away from people of New Orleans and Bourbon Street and that experience and creating something different? Because, no one's going to want to go to Fort Knox to celebrate New Year's.
Right. The debate is centered around whether the French Quarter and streets like Bourbon and Royal, St. Peter's, which are really sort of these main conduits, whether it should be pedestrian only. And when these barriers are in place, it effectively does become, at least Bourbon Street, and for the most part Royal, are pedestrian only. Jackson Square, there's barricades there. So it's sort of like, are we in for a dime or are we in for a dollar? And that's where I think city leaders are faced with the tough decision, knowing that, look, it has to be serviced each and every morning, from the delivery trucks, from the cleanup process, and then getting people to and from hotels and destinations within the quarter. So, yeah, there is a business element to this, but I think there's also the realization, look, if it's not safe, then, what's to become of the tourist attraction? It has to be safe first and foremost, what I think is driving decision making.
Yeah, makes sense. Yeah, it is a balance for sure. Greg LaRose, thank you for your time. I really appreciate you helping us go back and sadly remember that horrible event almost a year ago. We're going to get a break. When we come back, 12 Days of Christmas will continue tomorrow. The murders of Rob and Michelle Reiner, what happened at Conan O'Brien's Christmas party to set that off. Then next week, Scotty Peterson. We'll look back at that crime and where his appeal stands. Coming up next on Opening Statements.
We're asking the public to ensure that they can see here that you want to focus on the body movements, the way the person moved their arms, the body posture, the way they carry the weight.
What clues could the public glean from the video of the Brown University shooting suspect? We've got our body language expert weighing in. And there's a live look. Dedham, Massachusetts, inside the courtroom where Brian Walsh is expected to be sentenced. That hearing getting underway in a matter of minutes. We know that Anna's sister, Anna Walsh's sister, is going to give an impact statement. Who else will speak? Will Brian Walsh break his silence? Stay with us.
This is the Court TV podcast.
Oh, man. Look inside that attack from the kids' perspective there at Brown University. Man, imagine what they went through. And now the community is still reeling because the shooter remains on the run. But there is video, and his body language might end up helping out, tipping the scales in this search. The police have released not only photos, but then videos from the day of the shooting, showing the person of interest on the streets near the campus. Authorities are now seeking another individual who they say they're looking to speak to because he was in the vicinity of the alleged suspect. Surveillance footage has provided a look at the timeline of the alleged suspect's potential route leading up to the moment that left 2 students dead and 9 others wounded. Authorities are asking the public to pay very close attention, especially people that live in this area, to the movements here in order to help identify this potential suspect.
As you can see, there are enhanced photos, there's enhanced video footage, and so we're asking the public to ensure that they can see here that you want to focus on the body movements, the way the person moved their arms, the body posture, the way they carry the weight. I think those are important movement patterns that may help you identify this individual, which is.
All right, let's bring in somebody who can help us read these alleged suspects' body language, human behavior expert, Susan Constantine, with us this morning. Susan, good morning to you. The surveillance footage showing the person of interest near the school. Tell us what you see from the person's movement as he, let's pick it up here, walking by this picket fence. What stands out?
Well, first of all, we know that he's surveying, so there's actually 4 steps of a person when they are about to create malintent. Okay, so right now he had already planned, he's rehearsing, he's surveying the area, but with his body language, what we're looking for, actually he adjusts himself right there. I don't know if you saw that. So with that being said, when you look at his barrel chest, it tells you he's short and stocky. There's other photos, though, where his stomach is engorged, okay? So I do believe that there's probably something that is underneath his jacket, so they will conceal maybe weapons or what have you behind there. So there's other photographs that I think are much more revealing. And there's actually a close-up of him, and you could see slightly a photograph of his face, but it's kind of I don't know what he says, kind of clouded out, but he's got very deep, sallow eyes. So when you see a lot of darkness or shadowing, that's telling me about his culture. There's another point, too, where he kind of walks back and forth. He puts his hands behind his back. So what cultures do that? So we're looking at cultural gestures. There's Middle Eastern, there's Asian, there's British. Police officers, okay, those are the types of people that generally walk that way. Or maybe an older man, right there, there's where we see it. Mm-hmm. So what he's doing is that he is surveying. He is looking at the CCTV cameras, he's looking at the routes, he's looking at people, the pedestrians on the street. Right now he is planning. Don't take so much in this that he's walking, passing, kind of pacing. He is surveying right here, okay? Then there's other other photographs where I noticed, if you can see the one where he's crossing the street, was very distinctive. So this is where I want everybody to hone in on. When he's walking across the street, there is something.
Let's show this next. This is the enhanced part here, and this is what you're talking about, I think. Potentially here.
But that's okay. But that's okay.
What do you see here?
That's all right.
Not near this.
Okay.
Okay, different walk, right?
All right.
And he's not as fat.
Yes, exactly. First of all, you can also determine his height when he's walking past bushes, when he's walking back by these gates. There is also some signs on the street. He's passing by some brick kind of tall, kind of like gates. So I measured all of that. So he's going to be around 5'9". So I measured his height there. So I think he's around 160 pounds, maybe 170 pounds. It's short and stocky. You can see the dark, hollow eyes. He's fairly fair-skinned. But there's something very distinctive about his leg. Now, this is super important. You can't change this. You can cut your hair. You can color your hair. You can add weight to your body. You can change your clothes and you can conceal your weight. But you can't change these characteristics. On his right leg, his knee buckles in slightly, and his shin.
I saw that in the last clip, You can see it.
And so which is dips in, okay? And then his toe goes out on the right-hand side. This is characteristic. You can't change it because this is either an injury or something he was born with. You can't change it. So that is one thing that you really have to hone in on because this is going to get him. I can't tell you, Ted, how many people I busted, robbers, etc., based on their gait, their movement, their gait, these behavioral anomalies.
Right there. You can see,
You can't change it. He's got kind of wide-looking pants. So that's what's creating the waddle, okay? It's his inner part that's below the shin. It's right there. It's his right leg. Also, I think he's right-handed because when he was walking also, right-handed, he's got his hand in his pocket. You can see him kind of waddling. There you see the leg. There you see the leg. Okay, now, the reason why I say he's right-handed is because when he's walking across the street, unlike the other ones, he's got his hands in his pocket. So you could do that casually, kind of just roaming around. But generally speaking, you'll put your dominant hand in your pocket. So why? Because he's maybe concealing a weapon or something is in his pocket. So with that being said, he needs to have easy access, right? So he's going to use his dominant hand. Right-handed, stocky, 160 to 170 pounds, 5'9", max, I would say around there, okay? He might be Middle Eastern. I don't think he's Asian. I don't think he's British. He could be, in his 30s or whatever, right in there. The older people would do that, but I don't think he's older. So I'm kind of like removing pieces of it and kind of honing in. And he's got dark, sallow eyes. So that's meaning his eyes are very dark and deep set. Chances are they're brown.
Yeah, and he probably isn't from that area because boy, someone would have recognized him immediately if it was part of the Brown University community. One would think, who knows? Susan, boy, I love it, listening to you analyze all of this and giving us some perspective.
That's all for this episode of Opening Statements, my friends. I'm your host, Julie Grant, and it's been great being with you. On this show, I am calling out any pants-on-fire moments in our big trials and true crime stories, and I want you to come along with me. Opening Statements is live every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern on Court TV. Thank you for downloading this episode. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. You can watch past shows anytime you like on CourtTV.com.